My name is Grace. In our house, my brother Jason's name echoed through the walls like a looped song. If he coughed, my mom brewed fresh ginger tea. If I had a fever, you'll be fine by morning. Take a nap. His report cards were framed. Mine? They disappeared under piles of useless mail. It wasn't dramatic. There were no shouting matches, no slammed doors, no "I hate yous." Just absence, an emotional silence. I'd come home from school to find the family eating dinner without me. "Oh, we thought you'd already eaten," my dad would say, without even looking up from the TV. When Jason turned 13, he had a party with 30 kids, a rented virtual reality setup, and a magician. On my 16th birthday, a quick happy birthday, before my mom asked if I could mow the lawn before guests arrived for Jason's cello recital. I wasn't jealous. I was starving. When high school ended, the message was clear. Jason was going places, and I was on my own. He was accepted into a private university. My parents celebrated like he'd won an Olympic gold medal. I, in silence, enrolled in community college and picked up my second job. I didn't even tell them. In the mornings, I stocked shelves at a grocery store. At night, I worked as a cashier at a pizza place. Even then, through all that exhaustion, the isolation, the skipped meals, I clung to something irrationally hopeful, a dream. I'd stare at the streetlights through fogged-up windows and imagine a future where I had a real job. Maybe an apartment with peeling paint but working heat, and a dog who didn't care about my bank account. I wanted peace more than success. But success wouldn't hurt. I kept at it, semester after semester. My grades weren't bad, but between shifts and sleep deprivation, they weren't stellar either. I never expected a miracle. Never thought someone would save me. Then, the strangest Tuesday of my life arrived. I was ringing up some customers at the pizza place when an elegant man walked in and approached the counter. "Grace," the man said, squinting. He looked like an older version of a family photo. The same jawline, the same eyes as my dad, but with better shoes. It was Uncle Oliver, the rich one, the one my parents always said was too arrogant for his own good. He hadn't shown up to a holiday dinner since I was 12. I blinked, standing there in my grease-stained polo and name tag. "Uncle Oliver," I said awkwardly. He leaned back in his seat, whistled, and laughed. "Well, damn, you grew up. You working at the pizza place now?" I nodded, cheeks burning. "Yeah, just part-time." His smile lessened a bit. "Is this your main job or?" I shrugged. "2 jobs plus classes." Uncle Oliver stared at me for a moment, then pulled out his wallet and handed me a business card. "Come see me tomorrow," he said, serious. I didn't know what was happening, but it was the first time in years someone looked at me and didn't see a disappointment. The next morning, I stared at the business card like it was some kind of trap. It was thick, heavy stock, the kind you only see in movies or LinkedIn flex posts. Oliver Carlton, founder and CEO, Apex Solutions. It smelled like money. Part of me expected it to disappear. Or maybe it was a joke. But something in his voice yesterday sounded real, curious, maybe even concerned. I took the bus downtown, wearing the cleanest clothes I owned. Khakis that still fit from high school, and a shirt I once ironed with a hotel flat iron in a gas station bathroom. I didn't know what a CEO's office smelled like, but it definitely wasn't garlic knots and sweat. When I walked into the lobby of the Apex building, I felt like I'd stepped into another universe. Marble floors, plants that didn't look fake, a receptionist with a headset who looked at me like I was a glitch in the Matrix. "Grace," she said after confirming my name. "Mr. Carlton is expecting you." Elevator to the 18th floor. By the time I reached the top floor, I was sweating. Not from nerves, but from pure disbelief. Uncle Oliver's office had a glass wall overlooking the entire city and a kind of leather furniture that made you feel unworthy of sitting. He stood up when I walked in and shook my hand like I wasn't just his niece, but someone who mattered. "You made it," he said. "Coffee?" "Oh, sure." He poured it himself. No assistant. No dramatic pronouncements like, "Have a seat." Just casual, as if we were equals. "I have to be honest, Grace," he said, handing me a mug. "I didn't expect to see you working at the pizza place. Your father always said you were doing well. Said you were in school, working on some tech stuff." I laughed. A short, bitter sound. "I'm at community college. Working 2 jobs. Sleeping in my car half the week. So, yeah, tech stuff." Oliver's eyebrows arched. "Jesus." He looked genuinely shocked. "Is that what they let happen to you?" I shrugged. I guess they had bigger plans for Jason. Oliver was silent for a long second, then went to his desk and picked up a folder. "Well, I have a summer internship opening up. Pays well. Nothing fancy at first. Spreadsheets, research, maybe helping with onboarding, but you'd be working under my operations manager. Learn fast, show initiative, and I'll open bigger doors." I stared at him, unsure if this was an elaborate hallucination. "Why are you doing this?" Oliver leaned back, his expression soft. "Because when I was your age, your grandfather didn't do anything for me. And I promised myself that if I ever saw someone in the family being treated like I was, I'd do the opposite." That hit me harder than I expected. No one had ever stuck up for me, much less a relative who barely knew me anymore. I swallowed hard, blinked a few times, and said, "I'll take it." Oliver smiled. "Good. You start on Monday." As I walked out of the building, past the fountain and the gleaming black cars, I caught my reflection in a window. I looked tired, ill-dressed, and utterly out of place. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. On my first day, I walked into the Apex office looking like a kid who'd gotten lost in the wrong building during a school trip. My thrift store slacks were too short, showing my ankles. My shirt collar wouldn't lie flat, no matter how much I begged it. And my shoes squeaked with every step. The receptionist handed me a welcome packet and a badge like she was giving me a second chance at life. "Welcome, Grace," she said brightly. I smiled back, though my stomach was doing flip-flops. When the elevator opened on the 18th floor, the difference in air pressure felt psychological. Everyone there walked like they knew where they were going, like they had a favorite sushi spot and a stock portfolio. I met Richard, my direct supervisor, whose voice had the power of 5 espressos and a TED Talk. He wore a button-down shirt that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "Let's not pretend this isn't weird," he said, shaking my hand. "Your uncle is important, but I don't do nepotism. I do results." "Okay with you." "More than okay," I said, actually terrified. He chuckled. "Perfect. You'll do fine." The first few days felt like someone had dropped me in a foreign country with nothing but a broken phrasebook. People threw acronyms around like they were playing bingo. KPI, ROI, CRM, QBR. I was 2 abbreviations away from crying, but I stayed late, took notes, watched how people dressed, talked, and scheduled their calendars like little Outlook gods. Oliver checked in every other day, not in an ostentatious look-at-my-charity-case way, but discreetly. "Need anything?" he'd ask, sipping a double espresso that smelled like money. "A nap and a brain transplant," I'd say. He'd always smile and say, "You're already doing better than you think." That hit me harder than I wanted to admit. No one had ever told me I was doing well, much less better than I thought. From my parents, I was used to hearing things like, "Try harder," or "Jason would have done it faster." By the second week, something strange happened. I started to like it there. I started to belong. Richard gave me real projects, not just coffee fetching or printer minding tasks, but actual reports to pull. People asked for my opinion. A senior analyst even complimented how I formatted a dashboard. I wanted to frame the email. I moved out of my car and into a small shared apartment above a bookstore that smelled of dust and old dreams. The first night, I slept on a mattress. A real mattress. I cried. Not because I was sad, but because my back wasn't screaming in pain for the first time in months. One evening, inspired and perhaps a little presumptuous, I posted a picture on LinkedIn. Just me at my desk, grinning like a sleep-deprived goblin in a cheap button-down shirt. The caption read, Day 30. From sleeping in my car to starting a new chapter. Long way to go, but finally moving forward. I didn't tag Oliver. I didn't tag the company. Just a simple, quiet win. The algorithm had other plans. The post went modestly viral. Apparently, people love a good underdog story. A recruiter commented. A former professor messaged me. A stranger offered to buy me lunch just to hear the rest of the journey. But the message that made my heart freeze, a text from my mom. Grace, is it true you're working for Oliver? We saw a post. Why didn't you tell us? I stared at the screen like it had insulted my ancestors. Then the second message, Jason is asking. He feels very hurt you didn't share this with us. Right. Jason feels hurt. How would the world survive? I didn't reply. Not yet. I was still trying to figure out what I felt and if they truly missed me or just missed what I was becoming. The day after my mom's Jason is hurt message, I got a LinkedIn connection request from her. She hadn't acknowledged my existence on social media for years. Her profile still had one of those default gray silhouettes and a bio that read, Proud mother of Jason Blueheart. No mention of a second daughter. Then came the messages, so proud of you, honey. We always knew you had potential. You should come over for dinner soon. It's been too long. Jason just launched his campus app. You two could work together. Maybe introduce him to your uncle. That last line made me guffaw, a laugh with a squeak and everything. Jason, who once said I smelled poor, now wanted my help getting his glorified homework in front of Oliver. Meanwhile, I was buried in real work. Richard had included me in a vendor negotiation, and Oliver had started forwarding me emails directly, not just intern tasks, but actual decisions I was supposed to weigh in on. One afternoon, he called me into his office after a meeting and pointed to a flowchart I'd submitted. Have you ever thought about full-time Grace after college? I blinked. I mean, yes, but I didn't think I was ready. Oliver leaned back, an eyebrow raised. Most people aren't. You learn by doing, but you have a good head and a sharp eye. You work like someone who's been counted out and knows how to count herself in. That sentence I wanted to tattoo. I left his office that day with an offer letter for a permanent position after graduation. Mid-level operations analyst. Real salary, health benefits, paid time off. I held the paper like it might disappear if I blinked too hard. The next weekend, I went back to my old grocery store. Not to work, just to remember. I bought a soda from the vending machine in the break room and sat where I used to cry between shifts, staring at my name tag and wondering if I'd ever be more than a stand-in in someone else's success story. Now I had my own. But the family kept poking at the pages. My dad sent me an email, which was a miracle in itself, as I'm 90% sure he thinks computers are just TVs with keyboards. The message was short, we're glad you've turned things around. Maybe it's time to let the past go. Come to Jason's birthday this Sunday. He'd love to see you. Of course he would. Especially if I showed up in business casual and talked about things like Q3 projections and strategic partnerships. I could already practically hear the conversation. Wow, Grace really turned herself around. Yes, working for Oliver, of all people. I guess she's finally useful. We always said she just needed a little push. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of me they could now parade at parties. And here's the thing, I owed them nothing. I was no longer the scared kid waiting for crumbs of attention. I had a job, a home, a mentor who actually cared. And for the first time in my life, I had a backbone that wasn't made of excuses. When Sunday came, I didn't go to Jason's birthday. I went for a walk with Oliver instead. We got coffee and sat by the water. He didn't pressure me, just listened. You don't have to let them back in, he said finally. Blood isn't a free pass to your peace. I nodded slowly, my hands wrapped around a paper cup of something expensive and pumpkin-spiced. I know, I said. I just never thought I'd be the one who had the choice. The week after Jason's birthday, I got a text from him. That alone was weird. Jason barely acknowledged me outside of family group chats, the ones where I was usually the only one who didn't get a reply. His message was civil. Hey, long time. Saw your post. Proud of you. Would love to catch up sometime. I stared at the screen for a while. No typos, no emojis, just that quiet, calculated tone of someone about to ask for something. I didn't respond immediately. 2 days later, he followed up. I've been thinking, maybe we could grab lunch. Would love to hear how you got into Uncle Oliver's company. You always had a good head for system stuff. That part made me laugh. Jason used to say, I don't do spreadsheets. That's Grace's thing. In the same tone someone would use to say, I don't do calculus. Now he was calling me the systems girl. I asked Oliver about it over coffee. He's reaching out, I said. Should I reply? Oliver stirred his espresso and gave me the kind of look therapists probably charge $200 an hour for. Do you want to? He asked. That was the hard part. A year ago, I would have said yes in a heartbeat. I would have crawled over broken glass just to hear Jason say something nice. But now I could hear the gears grinding behind his words. I think he wants something, I said finally. Oliver nodded. Probably. People don't like to see someone they underestimated succeed. It makes them uncomfortable. I didn't reply to Jason. I didn't need to. But the silence didn't last. A week later, my mom called. This time, it wasn't just polite curiosity. Her voice had a practiced tone, like she was trying to sound casual and in the know, but kept tripping over her own intentions. So, she said, your dad and I were talking, and we think it's amazing how much you've come along. You've really grown, Grace. Thanks, I said cautiously. And well, Jason's startup is entering this crucial growth phase. He's built such a brilliant app. It connects students to real-time freelance jobs. It's so modern. Anyway, he's looking for real investors. And since you're working with Oliver, there it was. I let the silence hang. I don't make investment decisions, Mom. Oh, of course not. But you could, mention it to Oliver. Just pass it along. Family helping family. The same family that once forgot to pick me up from school because Jason had a dentist appointment. The same family that told me to figure it out when I couldn't afford textbooks. I ended the call politely. Then I put my phone on silent and stared out my apartment window for a long time. I was tired, not in the physical way I used to be, running on 3 hours of sleep and 2 jobs, but tired of being treated like an asset now that I had value. At work, I was thriving. Richard trusted me with a vendor onboarding project that directly impacted our Q4 operations. I presented in a meeting for the first time, me, the girl who used to sweat through her shirt just asking for time off at the grocery store. But at home, if I could even call it home, the emotional math hadn't changed. I was still a tool, a connection, a means to an end. That night, Oliver called me. I got an invite to a private networking event this Friday, he said. Small group, founders, investors, a few ops leaders. Wanna come? I hesitated. Won't I be out of place? You're already in the room, Grace, he said. Time to stop standing in the hallway. I stood in front of my closet, a ridiculously small closet, trying to decide which shirt would make me look like I hadn't just walked into a millionaire's event off the street. The only thing hanging that didn't scream Best Buy in turn was a dark gray blazer Oliver had gifted me a few weeks prior. It still had the tags on it. I never had a place worthy enough to wear it until now. The networking event was held on a downtown terrace. The kind of place with champagne that tasted like wealth and tiny canapes you needed a translator to pronounce. Everyone looked like they were about to close a merger or steal a spaceship. Oliver met me at the elevator, impeccably dressed. He said, "Nervous?" I nodded. "On a scale of 1 to 10, like identity theft?" "Very." He patted my back. "You belong here more than half of them. Just don't say synergy unless it's an emergency." The first 10 minutes were terrifying. I hovered near the cheese plate like it was home base in a corporate game of tag. But then someone asked me about my work, and I answered cautiously at first, then with a confidence I didn't know I had. By the end of the night, I'd exchanged business cards with the head of supply chain, had a full conversation about logistics and AI, and only spilled one tiny glass of wine. Oliver watched me the whole time, not like a bodyguard, but like someone who knew exactly how far I'd come. As the crowd thinned, he leaned in and said, "You didn't fake a thing tonight. That's how you know it's real." I smiled, and for the first time, I believed him. The next morning, reality punched me in the face in the form of Jason standing outside my apartment. I don't know how he found my address. Probably Mom. She never found a boundary she wouldn't cross like a finish line. He looked exactly as I remembered him. Designer hoodie, perfect haircut, and the self-satisfaction of someone who'd never had a check bounce in their life. "Hey," he said, as if we just talked yesterday. "Hope this isn't awkward." "It is," I said, not opening the screen door. "Look, I just want to talk." 2 minutes, please." Against my better judgment, I let him in. He walked through the living room like he was taking a real estate tour. "Wow, this is nice. You really upgraded. I didn't invite you for a guided tour." He sat on my couch, and looked at me like we were equals, like he hadn't ignored every struggle I'd ever had. "So," he said casually, "I have something to ask, and I wanted to do it face to face." I didn't say anything, just crossed my arms. "My app, ProTalent, it's gaining traction. We're doing a beta test next month. I want to introduce it to Oliver, and I figured, since you're on the inside, maybe you could facilitate things a bit." There it was. The ask. I let the silence stretch. "Look," he added quickly, "I know we haven't always been close, but you have to understand. Mom and Dad always put so much pressure on me. I didn't have it easy either. That was rich." "You had a car before I had a mattress," I said. "You had tutors, coaches, every opportunity. And I was forgotten on my own birthday." He winced. Just slightly. "That was a tough year." "No, Jason, that was just my life." He looked stunned. Maybe he thought I'd cave. Maybe he still thought I was that same tired, hungry kid, too desperate to say no. But I wasn't. "I'm not your in," I said firmly. "If your idea is good, pitch it on your own. I'm not your shortcut." He stood up, his expression sour. "Wow. So you finally smell success and now you're too good for your own family." I stared him down. "No," I said. "I'm finally good for myself. There's a difference." He didn't slam the door on his way out. That would require conviction. Instead, he just walked out with the same sense of entitlement he walked in with. Annoyed that the world hadn't given him what he asked for. That night, I told Oliver what happened. "You did the right thing," he said without hesitation. "People will try to ride your momentum, especially those who never helped you build it." I nodded, heart thrumming. Drawing a boundary shouldn't feel like a war. But when you've spent your whole life being walked over, even standing still can feel like rebellion. On Monday, after Jason's uninvited appearance, I arrived at work 10 minutes early. Not because I had anything to prove, but because I finally wanted to be there. Richard gave me a nod as I passed his office. "You've got that promotion walk going on," he joked. I laughed. I thought it was called posture. At lunch, Oliver pulled me aside. We went to a little cafe across the street, The kind where coffee is served in glasses, not mugs, and everything vaguely smells of truffle oil and tax brackets. "I've been watching you," Oliver said between bites of an expensive salad. "You're sharp. You listen. You lead quietly, but people follow you." I blinked. "Thank you." "That's not a compliment," he countered. "It's a warning because people will notice, which means they'll start testing your voice." I wasn't sure where this was going until he slid a folder across the table. It was a proposal, a full internal project involving our logistics system, and at the bottom, project lead, Grace, my last name. "You want me to lead this?" He nodded. "We'll give you a small team. Nothing huge, but this is yours from start to finish." It wasn't just a promotion. It was trust. Proof that I wasn't a charity case or a family favor. I had earned this. That night, I walked home slower than usual. Not because I was tired, but because I wanted to soak it in. I stopped at a street vendor and bought a falafel wrap, then sat on the steps of my building, like I used to do when I couldn't afford groceries. Back then, I ate cold pizza crusts and pretended I wasn't crying. Now, I was sitting under the same streetlight, but I wasn't the same person. The confrontation with Jason had left a mark. Sure, I had replayed it in my head a dozen times. Thought about what I could have said differently. Whether I should have been kinder, harsher, colder, but every time I replayed the memory, I came to the same truth. I didn't owe him kindness just because we shared DNA. I owed him nothing. That thought scared me less and less each day. Back at work, I hit the ground running. The project Oliver gave me wasn't easy. It required cross-department coordination, data wrangling, and figuring out why our vendor chains still had the response time of a dial-up modem. But for the first time in my life, I wanted the hard stuff. It felt like I was building a future with my own hands, instead of begging to be included in someone else's. And people noticed. Richard gave me his old standing desk. Don't get cocky, I hate sitting. And my inbox went from, "Hey, can you fix this spreadsheet?" to, "Grace, can you lead this call?" One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the office glass during a video call. Shirt pressed, hair not terrible, focused, confident. And I thought, so, this is what it's like to not need permission to exist. Oliver stopped by my desk at the end of the week. "So," he said, "feel like you're finally on track?" I nodded. "Yeah, and it's my track. That's the best part." He smiled. "I told you you had the brain. You just needed a place where people weren't trying to switch off the light." We walked out together that night, past the downtown lights, past the life I used to chase from the outside. And I realized something that made me pause for a moment. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was choosing. It was a Saturday morning when I got the email. Subject: family breakfast. Let's reconnect. Sent by my mom. Copied to everyone: me, Dad, Jason, a few cousins, even Great Aunt Linda, who still signs her messages with "lovingly you." The message was sugar-coated, but hollow inside. "We're so proud of how far you've come, Grace. We'd love to have you over to celebrate your success and just be a family again. No pressure, just breakfast and love." I sat there, coffee in hand, rereading the words like they were part of a script I was no longer interested in performing. The timing was perfect. I had just wrapped up the logistics project ahead of schedule, with glowing feedback from 3 departments. Richard gave me a fist bump that turned into a hug. And Oliver, well, he just nodded and said, "I knew you had it in you." I'd never said that to anyone before. And now, here was this email. As if none of it, the years of silence, the dismissal, the suddenly opportunistic affection, had ever happened. I didn't reply immediately. I went for a walk, bought a ridiculously fancy pastry from a downtown bakery, just because I could. I sat in the park watching runners go by with their headphones and perfect lives. Then I went home, opened a blank reply, and typed. Subject: family breakfast. Let's reconnect. Hi, Mom. Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate the gesture. But I think what you're hoping to reconnect with isn't really me. It's who I've become. And while I'm proud of who I am now, that version of me wasn't built with your support. It was built despite your absence. I'm not angry anymore. Just tired of giving access to people who only show up when it's convenient. I won't be attending the breakfast. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm busy building a life where I don't have to wonder if I matter. Tell Jason good luck with his app. Grace. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't refresh my inbox. I didn't even save a copy in my drafts. I hit send and closed my laptop. Thank you for listening to Grace's story. She rewrote her own story, and despite the lack of support from her parents and brother, she showed that she was capable and moved away from toxic relationships. Have you ever been underestimated by your family? Tell us in the comments if you've ever felt left out. If you enjoyed this story, like and share this video to inspire more people and subscribe to the channel for more surprising stories.